Subscribe to Keep It Terrifying for creepy tales, horror, and nightmares you won't forget. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and keep it terrifying.
Part 1: The Stranger's House. Divina had always been a woman of remarkable beauty and grace, with a heart to match. Her work ethic was unmatched at the office, her smile disarming, and her kindness extended to everyone she met. But at home, she wasn't treated like the glowing, radiant woman she was. Her husband, Daniel, was the perfect contrast to her. He was tall but gaunt, always looking as though he were weighed down by invisible burdens. He had never been a man of ambition. While she worked long hours at the office, Daniel spent his days lounging in his family's home, too comfortable in his role as a dependent husband. His family was no better. Divina had been raised in a house where she was taught to value hard work, where every moment of peace was earned, not given. But here, in Daniel's family's home, things were different. His mother was a quiet but forceful woman who made subtle demands that Divina should meet. His father, too, was a man who passed judgments rather than giving advice. They both treated Divina like she was a guest, someone who didn't belong, but it was Daniel's indifference that hurt the most. He was weak, unable to stand up to his parents or defend his wife. And every day, she felt it, the isolation. The growing resentment. The house was vast, with long hallways and echoing rooms, but it never felt like home to Divina. Her role in this family, it seemed, was to maintain the peace and ensure things ran smoothly, but at a cost to herself. Her kindness, her patience, were worn down with every passing day. One night, while cleaning the attic, Divina stumbled across something peculiar, an old, dusty mirror hidden beneath a tattered sheet. She had seen it before in a far-off corner of the house, but never this close. Intrigued, she ran her fingers across the glass. It was unnervingly cold, and a shiver ran down her spine. The reflection staring back at her wasn't her own. It was a woman, a beautiful, ethereal woman, dressed in old-fashioned clothing, her eyes dark and full of malice. The image shifted as though alive, twisting into a wicked smile before disappearing entirely, leaving Divina staring at nothing but her own reflection. The mirror unnerved her, but something about it also captivated her. She left it where it was, tucked under the sheet again, unsure of why she hadn't thrown it away. The shadows in the attic seemed to grow darker around it, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. Part 2: The Curse Unraveled. The next morning, as Divina walked through the house, she noticed a strange weight in the air, heavy, suffocating. She dismissed it as just another restless night. But it wasn't long before she realized that something was different. The strange presence she had felt in the attic had followed her into the rest of the house. Every room felt colder, darker. The mirrors in the hallway reflected her not just as she was, but as something wrong. The beauty she had once known seemed to fade in the glass, replaced with a hollow, aching figure that looked like her, but wasn't. At work, her colleagues noticed her changing, too. She became withdrawn, her usually cheerful demeanor replaced by an unsettling quietness. But the thing that troubled her the most was the feeling that something, someone, was always watching her. When she lay in bed at night, she could swear she heard whispering, voices from the mirror calling her name. One evening, while Daniel was asleep, Divina couldn't take it any longer. She ventured up to the attic once again, drawn by an invisible force, her hands trembling as she uncovered the old mirror. This time, she didn't hesitate. She gazed into the glass, and the reflection of the woman appeared again, more clearly now. She was smiling, but it was a twisted smile, cruel and knowing. "You want out of this, don't you?" the woman's voice hissed in Divina's mind. "You want to be free. But freedom comes at a cost." Divina's heart raced, her breath shallow. "Who are you?" The woman laughed, the sound echoing in her head. "A spirit bound by a curse, trapped in this mirror. But you can set me free, if you dare." The offer was tempting. Divina's life had been a quiet, painful struggle. The weight of Daniel's indifference, the harshness of his parents, and the constant loneliness had eaten away at her. She longed for something more, something different. What do I have to do? Divina whispered, her eyes never leaving the reflection. You must offer a sacrifice, the woman purred, her voice sweet and poisonous. One must suffer for your freedom. One must pay the price. Divina's stomach turned, but she couldn't look away. She thought of Daniel, his passivity, his weakness. She thought of his family, his mother who treated her as if she were nothing more than a servant. Do it, the woman whispered. Release me, and they will all fall. Part 3, The Sacrifice. The idea of revenge was intoxicating. But Divina struggled with the weight of the decision. Could she really go through with it? Could she truly bring herself to cause harm to the people who had wronged her? But the whispers in the mirror grew louder each night, each moment a reminder of the anger and the helplessness that she had kept bottled up inside her. The shadows in the house seemed to grow darker, watching her every move, urging her to take the next step. She couldn't live like this any longer. And so, Divina made her choice. The woman in the mirror smiled wider, her eyes gleaming with a dark satisfaction. I'll help you, the woman promised. I'll grant you the power to make them feel what you felt. But you must remember, the price is never paid in full. Divina's mind raced as she thought of her options. Her mother-in-law, who had always treated her as less than, had been the one to taunt her most often. The cruel comments. The demands. The condescending smile when Divina could not live up to impossible expectations. The shadows in her house seemed to grow more solid now. They were no longer just figments of her imagination, they were alive, swirling, and waiting for her command. The first act of revenge was small. A whisper to Daniel's mother as she sat alone in the kitchen. A promise of something sweeter. A glance in the mirror as she adjusted her hair, and then, she spoke. You have never loved me, have you? Not once. The air grew still. The mirror flickered again, and the woman's reflection grew stronger, more powerful. With that one sentence, everything changed. Part 4, The Unraveling of Divina. In the days that followed, Divina's life began to fracture. As she carried out the woman's demands, the subtle changes began to consume her. Daniel's mother fell ill, her body weakening under the strange curse that Divina had unleashed. She would become delirious, muttering about shadows, about curses, about Divina's eyes that no longer seemed human. But it wasn't just her mother-in-law who suffered. Divina began to feel a darkness in herself. Her once kind heart, now overshadowed by the power she had sought, started to rot. The anger, the cruelty, it seeped into her soul, changing her in ways she couldn't control. The shadows were never far away now. They whispered in her ear, urging her to do more, to sacrifice more. Every day, it became harder to resist. And soon, she found herself at the point of no return. The reflection in the mirror wasn't just a glimpse of the woman in the glass, it was Divina's reflection, warped and distorted. Her eyes, once warm and full of life, were cold, empty, consumed by the darkness. Her body trembled. The woman's voice echoed in her mind. You wanted freedom. Now you are free of your chains, but you will never escape me. Part 5, The Shattered Mind. Divina stood before the mirror once more, her fingers trembling as they traced the cold surface. The woman's reflection, no longer just an apparition but an extension of herself, smiled at her with an expression that was far too knowing. It wasn't just a smile. It was her smile, twisted and cruel, something Divina had never seen on her own face before. You've made your choice, the voice in her head whispered, a mocking tone lacing its every syllable. You are mine now. But Divina's mind was no longer entirely her own. She could feel the shadows in her thoughts, crawling, wrapping around her consciousness. The darkness that had been a distant, almost surreal thing was now part of her soul. It fed on her resentment, her anger, her bitterness. Every time she gave in, every time she carried out the whisper's commands, the shadows grew stronger. And Divina? She became weaker. The power that had once made her feel alive was now draining her. It was taking pieces of her, her humanity slipping away with every act of malice. At first, the feeling of revenge had been intoxicating. Watching her mother-in-law grow weaker, seeing the fear in Daniel's eyes when he couldn't understand why his family was falling apart, there had been a rush in it, a high she hadn't known she craved. But now, as the days bled into each other, Divina could feel it. A hollow, gnawing emptiness deep within her, like a part of her was being carved out. Every mirror she passed reflected the emptiness in her eyes. She no longer recognized herself. Not fully. The more she used the dark power, the more the house began to change, too. The once gleaming halls now seemed damp, the walls sagging as if they were suffocating. The floors creaked under the weight of something heavy, something that wasn't just the physical decay of the house, it was the essence of the curse itself, a poison seeping into the very bones of the place. Divina knew she was losing herself. She was becoming like the shadows she had welcomed. But she couldn't stop. Not yet, not until she had taken everything from them. Part 6, The First Crack. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the garden, Divina sat in the parlor, staring blankly at the flickering flames of the hearth. The whispers had grown louder, more insistent, pushing her to act. The final step was upon her, she knew it. But as she stared into the fire, she saw something that made her heart stop, a fleeting shadow moving across the floor. She blinked, but it was gone. The room felt colder. Too cold. Her skin tingled with the sensation that she wasn't alone. She stood up slowly, her breath coming shallow, and moved toward the window. The garden outside looked different. There was something off about it, like the night was watching her, waiting. When she turned back, Daniel was standing in the doorway. "You've been distant lately," he said, his voice soft, but it held a note of concern she hadn't heard in years. "What's happening to you, Divina? I don't recognize you anymore." His words hit her like a punch to the gut. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words got stuck, lodged somewhere deep inside her throat. How could she explain? How could she tell him that she was slipping into something darker, that the woman he once loved was vanishing? But she didn't want his pity. She didn't need his concern. "I'm fine," she said, forcing a smile. It felt wrong on her lips, but she wore it anyway. "I just need some time." Daniel didn't seem convinced. "You've been acting strange. And this house, there's something wrong with it." "I feel it too, Divina. The air, it's thick with something." Divina's heart raced. He couldn't sense it. Not really. He hadn't felt the shadows wrapping around him like she had, hadn't been drowning in them the way she was. "I think you should leave," Divina said, her voice low, almost detached. The words felt alien, but there was no turning back. She didn't need him anymore. Daniel's expression faltered. Hurt flashed in his eyes, but he didn't move. "You're not the woman I married," he whispered, his voice breaking. Her chest tightened as his words hit her, but she couldn't let him in. She couldn't let him pull her back from the abyss. "I'm exactly who I was meant to be," Divina replied coldly. The shadows behind her seemed to respond, twisting in the corners of the room, curling around her like a cloak. And then, as though the very air had shifted, Daniel's eyes widened. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, his body stiffened, his face contorting with a pain Divina had never seen before. His hands clawed at his throat as if something was choking him from the inside. "Divina!" He gasped, his voice strangled, "Please, help me." But Divina only stood there, watching him. She didn't move. She didn't care. And when he finally crumpled to the floor, gasping for air, she felt a strange sense of relief. A cold, hollow relief. The shadows behind her flickered and pulsed, as if satisfied. As if they were pleased. Part 7, The Breaking Point. That night, Divina wandered the house alone. Daniel was unconscious on the floor of the parlor, his body limp and pale. She didn't care. He was weak. He had always been weak. He wasn't part of her new life now. The shadows, her true family, were all that mattered. The house felt more alive than it ever had. The walls seemed to breathe with her, the floors creaking with each step she took. The mirrors that had once reflected her image were now warped, twisted by the curse she had awakened. As she passed each one, her reflection flickered like a shadow, distorting her features. She found herself in the hallway where it all began. The attic door loomed ahead, dark and imposing. Divina hadn't visited it since the first time she had uncovered the mirror. But now, the air around it felt charged, like the house itself was calling her back. She ascended the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest. The attic was colder than she remembered, the air thick with dust and old secrets. As she pulled the old sheet from the mirror, the reflection in the glass was no longer just the woman, it was her. And she smiled. But the smile wasn't hers. The woman in the mirror, the one Divina had become, grinned back at her with malice. The shadow that had once whispered in her mind now had a face of its own. "You've taken what you wanted," the woman whispered. "But you will never be free. You can never escape the darkness now." Divina's heart stuttered. The realization hit her all at once, like a weight crashing down on her chest. She had become the very thing she had feared. And as the shadows closed in, wrapping around her, she understood. The price had been paid. But it was she who had been sacrificed. Part 8, The Final Whisper. The days blurred into weeks, and the house slowly withered under the weight of the curse Divina had unleashed. Her family-in-law's voices grew quieter, their spirits broken. They moved like sleepwalkers, hollow-eyed and resigned to the fate Divina had set in motion. Daniel remained a ghost in his own home, never fully awake, never truly dead. He wandered the house in silence, his eyes wide and unblinking. He was no longer human, just another victim of the darkness Divina had called forth. And as for Divina, she no longer needed the mirror. She no longer needed the shadows to whisper their promises. She had become them. The house was hers now. The curse was hers. And as the blood-red moon rose once more, she felt the weight of it, the weight of the power she had craved, the power that had consumed her. In the silence of her broken home, Divina finally understood. There was no escaping what she had become. There was no way out. She was the curse now. Forever. Part 9, The Endless Night. The house was quiet now, the weight of its silence thick, almost suffocating. The once bustling halls were barren, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards or the whisper of the wind outside. The air seemed to carry a sense of death, a staleness that clung to every room, every corner. Divina wandered through the house, her footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. Her reflection no longer appeared in the mirrors, at least, not in the way it once did. Now, there was only darkness when she passed them, like her image had been erased entirely. She stood in the middle of the parlor, her eyes blank as she gazed at the place where Daniel had fallen, his life drained from him. His body, once so full of life, was now a hollow shell, a testament to her desire for revenge. His eyes, still open in eternal terror, were a haunting reminder of her choice. But as she stared at his lifeless form, Divina felt no remorse. There was nothing left within her but the hollow ache of the shadows, the hunger of the curse she had invited into her soul. She had taken everything she had wanted. And yet, she felt nothing. The shadows, her silent companions, whispered in her ears, their voices growing ever more insistent. Their presence had become a constant hum, a pressure against her thoughts, telling her what to do, how to live, how to be. "You are ours," they murmured. "You are the curse now. The house is yours. The shadows are yours. The torment is yours." Divina closed her eyes, her hands trembling. Her once beautiful face had become a mask of stone, a reflection of the darkness that had consumed her. She had traded everything, her love, her humanity, her very soul, for a power she could no longer control. And now, she understood what the woman in the mirror had meant all those weeks ago. Freedom comes at a cost. The cost was herself. The price was eternal. She turned away from Daniel's body, her footsteps slow and deliberate. There was no need to mourn him, he was nothing more than a part of her twisted past, a symbol of the man she had once loved, and the man who had failed her. She moved past him, through the long, darkened hallways that had become her prison. The mirror in the attic still called to her. But when she reached it, the reflection staring back at her was no longer her own. It was the woman, the spirit, who had once offered her a way out. The one who had whispered sweet promises of vengeance. Her eyes were black and endless, her lips curled into a knowing, sinister grin. Divina's breath caught in her throat. The reflection tilted its head, its smile widening. "You did well," the woman whispered, her voice a soft caress against Divina's ear. "You've taken everything from them. The house is yours. The power is yours." Divina's eyes narrowed as she stared at the reflection, trying to fight the pull, the deep, gnawing hunger within her. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice hollow and empty. The woman laughed, a low, chilling sound. "What do I want? Nothing, dear. You've already given me everything." The shadows in the room flickered, their tendrils slithering across the walls like serpents. They stretched toward Divina, curling around her like a lover's embrace. And for a brief, fleeting moment, she felt a sense of belonging, of power, that she had never felt before. But then, the truth hit her like a hammer. The woman in the mirror wasn't just a reflection. It was her, the darker side of herself that had always existed beneath the surface. The spirit, the curse, had always been inside her, whispering her darkest desires into her ear. It had never been about freedom. It had never been about revenge. It had been about taking control. And now, Divina was truly lost. The shadows filled the attic, the air growing thick and oppressive. Divina stood motionless, the darkness closing in on her. She could feel the weight of it, the curse, settling into her bones. It wasn't just a part of her now. It was her. "You are mine," the reflection whispered, its voice merging with her own thoughts. "And I will never let you go." Divina's eyes widened in horror as the woman's laughter echoed in her mind, blending with the whispers of the shadows, the cold, unfeeling darkness that now ruled her life. The house groaned around her, the walls shuddering under the weight of the curse. Outside, the moon hung heavy in the sky, its blood-red light casting an eerie glow over the landscape. The house, the family, the memories, all of it was now swallowed by the shadows. Divina stood motionless, her body stiffening as the darkness fully consumed her. The last remnants of the woman she once was, kind, loving, beautiful, faded into the void. And in the heart of the house, the curse lived on. Epilogue, the House of Shadows. Years passed. The house stood still, its walls slowly decaying as time wore on. But something within it never changed. The whispers never stopped. The shadows never receded. The house had become a place of nightmares, a dark reflection of its once grand form. Those who passed by could feel it, the presence of something ancient, something wrong. Travelers spoke of strange noises in the night, of glimpses of a woman in the windows, her eyes black as coal, her expression frozen in eternal malice. And if anyone dared to enter, they would find the mirrors, now cracked and broken, reflecting nothing but darkness. No one who had entered the house ever left. The curse had claimed them all. And Divina, forever bound to the shadows, walked the halls of the house she had once called home. Her reflection, her true reflection, now a part of the darkness.